The original Warcraft movie, in my opinion, didn't really hit the target. It was okay, but it didn't really show the full potential that Warcraft has to offer, and it didn't really connect with the mainstream audience. Now, lately there have been some really unreliable rumors that the second movie is possibly in the works. This video topic is inspired by Russian YouTuber Lekrock, and you can check out his video in the description. So, is Warcraft 2 possible? What about the rumors? And could an Arthas storyline work? Brought to you by Gamivo.com. Make sure to click the link in the description and get Shadowlands as well as Game Time at discounted prices. The Warcraft movie was most certainly a failure. It was supposed to be a part of a trilogy, and now with the reviews and the revenue they made, we know that it didn't hit the planned goals. Now, it wasn't a catastrophic failure where they lost all the money, but they did lose money on it. It wasn't really profitable. They later confirmed that there won't be any new movies, but recently, in the past few months, there have been a few rumors floating around, some debunked and some really not backed up by much evidence. There was a tweet by Chris Metzen about this possibility, although he confirmed he knew nothing as he really doesn't work on anything related, and there was some insider information that a new studio might be planning to pick up Warcraft with a completely different story, and that they're even asking Peter Jackson about it, the guy that made the amazing Lord of the Rings trilogy. Aside from that, most of it is really just rumors without too much of a base to stand on. Now, my opinion is that Warcraft in general is really hard to turn into a movie. The universe is so insanely large, there is so much lore, so much information, that it is really hard to put it into a 2-hour movie that would be able to pull in the attention of a brand new viewer. I know that they plan to do the Warcraft originally as a trilogy, but still, you need to be able to present what the lore has to offer to the mainstream audience that has no clue what Warcraft even is. The biggest mistake that I think they made is that they chose the orc storyline. I know the orcs versus humans is the staple of Warcraft, it is literally what created the franchise as we know it, but honestly, unless you can get people to understand everything that happened on Draenor, the Burning Legion, the Draenei, Sargeras, the history of Azeroth, and all the other stuff, you can't really fully appreciate this story. Sure, there are people like us that have been into the Warcraft lore for ages, for decades, but we make up a relatively tiny minority of the revenue, and the target audience is the mainstream public if they really want to earn big money on the trilogy. Try to look at the movie from a perspective of a regular viewer. The guy is watching some CGI orcs invade humans, they defend themselves, and that's about it. They throw around a million different fantasy names, Gul'dan, Durotan, Frost Wolves, that mean literally nothing, and you can see how to a regular person this just seems like another cheap science fiction movie. There is just way too much information, way too much stuff, and I think it is hard for people to connect to the orcish storyline. Originally, Warcraft was a lot more black and white. It was more about the evil orcs versus the good humans, but now they're trying to present how orcs have been manipulated as well, and apparently there is this Gul'dan and the Legion, but people have no clue what this even is. It would require like another movie for them to even understand what all of this fuss is about. For this reason, I think that the best storyline they could take and the best movie would just be about Arthas. Think about it, it is literally the perfect plot for a movie, and it could even be done in just a single movie. It wouldn't even be that much of a risk. First of all, people are already familiar with Undeath and that entire storyline. It literally resembles what happened in Game of Thrones, and people were just crazy about that storyline. Sure, Game of Thrones ended up being terrible with their ending, but the build-up with the Undead really got people on their toes. For this reason, I think they could do this with Arthas in a much similar style. A regular human kingdom consumed by Undeath, and the story of a prince that had to choose between a rock and a hard place. I feel like people could connect to that just way more. They could show how the kingdom turned upside down in the course of days, the chaos, the purge of Stratholme, the moral choices, and if written well, they could really present the complexity of Arthas' character and his choices that he had to make. There wouldn't even be a ton of CGI, crazy beings and griffins that would pull people away, and the storyline could be brought more to earth, to put it simply. I believe that Arthas' storyline is literally the best one in the entire Warcraft series. There are so many people that know nothing about World of Warcraft and all this stuff happening right now, yet they have heard about Arthas Menethil and the Lich King. So they could present the Lordaeron storyline, the Purge of Stratholme, and the departure to Northrend, and if people love it, the trilogy could be about his journey in Northrend and ultimately the process of him conquering Lordaeron and becoming the Lich King. Now, in terms of different storylines for the movie plot, I really don't see any others that would be so easily relatable to the mainstream public, or the ones that wouldn't require a ton of explanation for people to get, like the key ones, such as War of the Ancient, that is just way too complex and requires the knowledge of the universe, Sargeras, and everything else. The original title ones are way too abstract, and most of the other stories have either too many races, factors, and things you need to know about to fully appreciate the lore. The only other possibility I see is maybe the invasion of Kual Talas, but even there you would need to know the story of Arthas, so this could be a part of the Arthas trilogy. This is exactly why I think the beginning of Arthas' storyline is the perfect one to choose for. The plot is you really don't need that much introduction and it is relatively straightforward. Of course, whether this will happen or not is almost certainly just about money, and as one movie failed, I doubt many are willing to take on another chance with millions of dollars, possibly even billions. The current rumors are definitely unreliable. However, I think if they manage to get Peter Jackson, the guy that already has a lot of experience with fantasy trilogies, I think a new Warcraft movie could definitely see a lot more success. Thank you for watching. Check out why Lune is really important in the Shadowlands by clicking on the screen, and also check out Doran's Academy for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.